Hey guys, can everybody hear me? Do I need to speak louder or good? Thumbs in the back? Okay. I've been dealing with some serious allergies, so I apologize.
That might help too.
I don't know, these things are scary.
I know it is.
Oh, is this better?
They're scary.
Okay. I'm having the Pacific Northwest allergy syndrome, so I'm going to try to minimize the coughing. Also, I've got notes on my phone. I promise I'm not texting. I just thought, maybe you guys don't want to see all of that. So yeah, I'm a senior environment artist at Sucker Punch. We're mostly well known for doing Infamous and Sly Cooper. I've been here for about 2 years. Before that, I was at Naughty Dog for about 7.5 years. So I've worked on Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, and then currently at Sucker Punch, we're working on Ghost of Tsushima. If you haven't heard anything about it, we've got a cool debut video on the internet. Check it out. But I got started just like you guys at a relatively small specialized school for visual effects. And I didn't know that I was going to go into games. It kind of just happened. I thought I was going to, work in films. I wanted to work on Harry Potter because that's how long ago I was in school. So I'm here to share a little bit with you guys about both sides, what it's like to be a junior getting into the industry, but also what we look for when we're hiring, because believe it or not, I'm actually helping with the recruiting pipeline at Sucker Punch. So I look at all the candidates who come in for environment artist positions, and I, do the thumbs up or down. Do you go forward or do you just stop in your tracks? So we're gonna talk a little bit about both of those things. I probably won't be able to get through every nook and cranny, but we'll have some time for questions, and hopefully I won't be sharing a bunch of stuff with you that you guys have already heard 5, 10, 15, 20 times, Yeah, we got some slides. So first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about your portfolios. So I see a lot of portfolios. I see student portfolios that have 20, 30, 40 images on them, and none of them are great, right? Because you've put on 30 images. And then I've seen students who have 2 or 3 pieces on their portfolio that are amazing. And those are the ones that I look for. So the first thing I want to talk about is quality over quantity. You can have one good piece. Let's say you're an environment artist. You can have one environment on your piece and you can get a freaking job. Bare minimum. Have one really good piece, showcase it, take lots of screenshots of it, shoot it in different angles, maybe even different lighting. Is it an interior shot? What's it look like with the windows open and the natural light coming through? What's it look like at night? Do you have lamps in there? Did you remember to set dress and put some fucking lamps in there? I don't know. Maybe you're oh, I didn't even put light switches in here. If you think about rendering it in different times of day, you might think about other aspects that show a little bit more of your thought process and your attention to detail. So milk that one shot if you've got one shot. Render out some of your best props. You don't have to render out every single prop and do a turntable of your boring old glasses case and these sunglasses. Do you have a really cool grandfather clock? Or is there a PlayStation in there that you're hey Sony, wink wink, this is really cool. Do some really good renders of those and just showcase some of your detail work. It's okay if you have assets that just have a tiling texture on it and it's hanging out in the back. Don't show those. Let them play their little part in the back, but showcase your really good work. While we're on the topic of that, please don't render your props over black or over white. I know that sounds really lame, but when you render props over black, they look really it's not great. I can't see the shadows, the fall off, it's too contrasty. I'm gonna show you some really good examples of what you can do with that. So just, make a little note and, just show your best work. I wanna see your work in the order of best to last. I have to look at every portfolio that comes into our team, whether they're junior, senior, mid-level. If they wanna work in the environment department at Sucker Punch, I look at all of them. I also have to review their tests later and decide whether or not they're moving forward. I have to look at all their resumes. It's a lot of stuff to look at. So I might not be able to click on every single asset. So put your best piece first, then your next, and so forth and so on. So that at minimum, I see the shining example of what you can do. And then edit, that whole thing, quality over quantity. If there's a piece on there that, let's say I don't like to use this example, but if you wouldn't frame it and put it up in your man cave, your woman cave, your bedroom, you wouldn't ship it off to your mom for Christmas, don't put it on your portfolio. Just don't do it. Don't advertise mediocrity. I had this opportunity to participate in a mentorship program with the Visual Effects Society many, many years ago. And I had a mentor there who said, don't advertise mediocrity. She's like, if you got, decent grades in school, yeah, solid 3.0, nothing to be ashamed of, good stuff. Your mom probably put your report card on the magnet on the fridge and was like, hey, 3.0. But 3.0 is not like the amazing thing that you want to showcase on your resume. You can say, I graduated, I did all this cool stuff, look at these cool classes I took, but 3.0 is not like the top tier. Now, did you graduate with honors? Sure, put that on there. Same thing with your work. Don't put filler work on there, because I'm gonna see it and I'm gonna be like, does this person know that this work doesn't make them look great? Now I'm judging your ability to critique your own work. Like, everything you do in your resume and your portfolio is gonna go past these scrutinizing eyes. And I'm looking for every reason why you won't be a good fit, because I have 100 portfolios to look through. I can't hire all 100 of you guys. I just can't. I might have 2 slots, and I need to weed out who's got good decision making. Even if this one piece isn't as good as your one piece. Did you make good choices? Did you have good artistic skills? But did you edit out things that weren't great? Was your composition good? So don't put this stuff in there that's gonna say, oh, that's not really that good. Why are they showing me that when they have these other great pieces? So weed out the ones that aren't super great. Have your friends look at it. Also, I'm gonna move the mouse so it's not over the text. State what you've done, give it call outs. If you worked on a team project, if you guys all worked on a really sweet animated short together, call out what you did. Show the video, take a screenshot and say, hey, I worked on this water bottle and I animated these glasses falling off the table. You can share what your friends have done. You can say, Joe Schmo did the particle effects. Joe Schmo gets a call out, that's cool for Joe Schmo. Maybe the person looking at your portfolio is also looking for an effects guy. But make it clear, because if I have to look through every single thing and I don't know what the hell you did, I'm gonna be really frustrated and I'm probably not gonna hire you. Make sure your presentation is clear. Make sure you've got large images. No little tiny thumbnails that I can't even tell, because I'm gonna think you're hiding bad work. I don't want you to hide your bad work. Show me your good work. We're talking this is the digital age of HD TVs and HD monitors, and everybody's looking at everything in 1920, 1080, who knows numbers anymore. But big, it should be able to fill up this whole screen so I can see what you're hiding. And while we're on the topic of that, what about ArtStation? ArtStation's great. You can use ArtStation. You don't have to build a website anymore to get a job. You can use websites like Squarespace too. I use Squarespace. I also have an ArtStation. But you can use ArtStation, just make sure, again, it's clear, it's organized, you have your best work first. Maybe you want to group some of your stuff together, all of your doodles from Inktober. Maybe instead of having 500 of them on the homepage, they're in their own little group, and I can just scroll through and kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to show you a couple of portfolios. We've got 3 juniors that we picked up in the last year and a half, and they've all said yes, show them my work, please. They're all very excited. So this one is Blake, and I picked their portfolios because they're very, very clear, easy to use. Some of them don't even have a whole lot of work, so I wanted to show you, you can get hired at a AAA studio without having, 500 pieces of work. So when I saw Blake first, I was over here on this professional tab, and I saw that he did some work for the University of Michigan, which is where I went to school a long time ago, and I was like, ooh, yay. But some of us won't have tons of professional work when we're first starting out. But even his professional work, I'm looking at the composition and I'm looking at the type of details he's got. But then when I look at his personal stuff, this is where I really, really care, because I don't know his professional stuff. I don't know what he's done. I don't know how much other people have done, if there's a materials folder or something somewhere. But so, I look at this tree in the forest, and he shows me what software he's using. I can click it and it normally gets bigger. There we go, and it's highlighted now, so it's great because blue's great. But I'm looking at, he's got some trees in here. I'm like, did you make them yourself or did you use something else? Personally, I wish I knew what this little red icon was. Don't assume that the people who are gonna be hiring you are smarter than you, because many times they're not. So I don't know what this is. So I don't know if he built these trees himself. I don't know if these are from some other software. So like I said, callouts, this would be really great. I don't want to hire this guy as a foliage artist if he can't make foliage. He could, organize a nice scene, but maybe he doesn't know how to make foliage. I don't know. Easy to navigate and scroll through, that's really great. So he's got this really lovely shot of a woman here. He's showing some close-ups, and I'm like, damn, son. And then I look down and he's showing me his process. He's doing photogrammetry, and he's showing the stages of it. Like, if you don't have a whole lot of work, show the stages of it so I can see what you've done and how you've gotten there. I can see how he's retopologized. I can see all of the bake detail. I can see some of his tests. This is a good way to break down one asset and get the mileage off of it. Another shot where he's like, oh, I've just got this head. But he's doing some really great artistic things with the way he's framing the shot. He's got some depth of field on it, and then some nice lighting. But then he goes through and shows me the materials, because he's like, this is just a head, which he probably used that scan from that chick we just saw. He's reusing it. And so he's like, look, these are some materials I've made. Look at how I made them. And I'm like, well, I don't really know what that is. But he's just, very simple, very clean, and he's just showing some of his stuff, how he's getting there. He's got some videos. So that's Blake. This is Douglas. This is a junior whose portfolio I saw and wanted to hire without making him do a test, and that is really, really, really rare. So Douglas has a ton of foliage stuff, and we did hire him to be on the foliage team. And so he's got this call out in the front here, this nice big paragraph where he just kind of talks about what he did, why he wanted to work on it. He's like, I wanted to focus on foliage. Sweet, dude, you accomplished that. And he says, all the models and effects besides the character model were done by myself using Maya, ZBrush, SpeedTree, and Unreal. So I already know, before I've even looked at any of the screenshots, that he's done everything except the human. So I'm like, that's awesome. Now I can just click through and look at all the beauty that is what Blake can do. And so, not Blake, sorry, Douglas. And again, large images. I can click through and just see all of the stuff he did. And this is a junior. I mean, it's really great. He's telling some stories. He's got like this little tent, a campfire. Storytelling's really important. If you can put that in there, you're gonna get extra kudos from hiring managers, because that's what we do in video games, we tell stories. So also, one of the really important things about this is Douglas put his best piece first. This whole set of environment shots, this is his best piece. Then he's got, this Dead Space Unreal thing that he's, a fan of, and he recreated. Again, he's got this paragraph up here talking about what I did. Special thanks to Unreal Engine users. That's cool. He's giving props to other people because he's using their planet shader. See? And so he's just got more images of cool stuff that he's made. Easy to navigate, big images, and I can see it. So that's basically how we're going through his portfolio in top to bottom, and he's got 3 main projects, and granted some of this project here is quite big. He's taken different screenshots of different angles, and I'm really getting a sense of what he can do. And then he's got a little space at the end for his 2D art. This is exactly how I would want to see a portfolio organized. Leave your pictures of your dog off, and I know everyone says, oh, I would never do that, but I've seen it. I've seen pictures of people's dogs, their boyfriends and girlfriends, it happens. Leave it off, show your work, then maybe show some of your traditional 2D work, show me what's relevant first, and then show me some of your 2D stuff. And again with this, pare it down. Don't show me everything. And then give me a little bit of about me, give me your contact info and your resume. And this is Zach, who was our most recent junior hire. He and I just missed paths. He was working at Naughty Dog really briefly before he got hired at Sucker Punch and just after I left. And he's only got 4 pieces on his portfolio, right? 4 items. So he's got this little bot guy here. Again, little characters and props modeled in Maya and ZBrush. Textured, where is it textured? There it is. He's got some turntable videos I can click. I can click this image and hopefully it gets bigger. I'd like it to be a little bigger than that. I know it's a vertical image, but it's okay. And then, he shows some breakdowns of his model. He's got some wireframe. He shows some textures. I can see everything that he's done, and I can see, how he's working, and does he have errors, or is it technical? And it's easy to navigate. My only issue with Zach's is that I wish I could just click to the right and like see more of his work, but instead I have to click back here and go back to the front. So if Zach was keeping his portfolio up, I'd probably tell him to do that. And again, he's got a character model, not quite over black. I'd prefer if it was still a little bit lighter, but this is nice contrast without being too dark. Showing off his wireframe, showing it from different angles. Shows it here even as a gray model with some cool particle effects, which it doesn't really want to open. That's okay. So I can see his work. Even though he doesn't have a ton of work, I can see it, and it's really great. So keep it clear, keep it concise, keep it easy. Again, he's got a resume, he's got some contact info. He's got a link to his art station. Super cool, very easy. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It can be an ArtStation account. We look at ArtStations all the time, so even if you don't have a portfolio, ArtStation's free. Use it, abuse it, you know, make it happen. Oh yeah, I showed you their links already. Juniors, we've hired. So Blake works in the world team, so he's not just building props. Douglas works on the foliage team, so he's working on creating plants with a whole team of artists for our game. And then Zach is like one of our one and only prop artists. So even as a junior, you're going to be able to have an opportunity possibly to work in a lot of different spaces based on your skill set. So what are we looking for when we look at your portfolio? The first thing I'm going to look at is your art skill, where you currently are at, what's your ability. I'm going to look at your creativity. I'm going to look, can you tell stories? You know, even if it's just like a really simple scene, can I tell like who's lived there, what's happened there? Is there a story, or is it just, here's a table with a placemat and an apple bowl? No, like maybe there's a table with a placemat and there's a spilled glass of wine and like some shattered glass or something. Like that tells me a story. There was a struggle. Maybe the like chairs pushed over. Those types of things kind of draw us in, and they make us want to know more, because if you can do that with one shot, you can do that in a trailer scene, you can do that in a cutscene, you can do that in a game. And it's important that we don't just build generic bedroom 5, generic bedroom 6, generic bedroom 8 in a mansion. Each one of those rooms would have a different person living there with a different personality, and we need to tell their stories so it's immersive. So I'm going to look at, you know, your art skill. I'm going to look at your artistry in the rawest form, like your composition, your color theory, your creativity. You know, is the lighting interesting? It doesn't have to be beautiful or perfectly technical if you're not a lighting artist, but is it interesting, and does it help lead my eye around the page? Is it helping tell the story? We're going to look at your technical skills, like if it's a video game assets, is it game ready? Is it baked correctly? I'm going to look at your texel density, like is one thing really good resolution and the thing next to it really blurry? I'm going to look at, you know, is it optimized, and are you using the correct values for your diffuse textures? Because PBR is a thing now. We didn't used to use it. We didn't used to care, but now we do. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at your diffuse maps, and I'm going to say, this guy's already got a problem that we're trying to solve company-wide. Do I want more of that? No. I'm going to also look at, can your art fit in our world? Is it good enough with just a little bit of polish from maybe a senior artist or some guidance from the art director? Will I be able to take this water bottle and put it into Ghost of Tsushima? I mean, you know, they didn't have water bottles in feudal Japan, but maybe in Uncharted 4 they have water bottles. We had lots of water bottles in The Last of Us. So is it good enough to fit into our world with a little bit of assistance? Are they looking at how densely populated the world of video games are now? Like those days of like the house being, you know, a cube with like all the textures projected on it are gone. Like if your idea of games is still super lo-fi, like I'm gonna see that and I'm gonna be like, damn, I don't know if this is gonna be a good idea or not. So I need you to think about that. Could your piece fit into our world? And then we're also looking at your potential, because we know that you guys are junior artists. We don't expect you to be able to build the lead character from The Last of Us 2. We're just not expecting that. But we wanna know, if you were to work here for a little while, is your potential gonna grow? And are you going to be somebody who could become a lead artist? Not necessarily that you have to. You don't have to get hired at Sucker Punch and stay there long enough to be a lead, but where is your potential at? Have you peaked, or is there still room to grow? So we're gonna look at all of those things. And we're gonna look at like where you are compared to other juniors. Because I've already looked at, 100 junior profiles maybe in the last 2 years. I'm gonna say, how did you level compared to them? Are you near the top? Like, are you one of the best junior portfolios I've seen in the last 2 years, or are you kind of at the bottom or in the middle? So we're gonna look at that when we move forward. There's a question in the back already.
Right, when you say junior and
Sure.
what exactly is
So there's always a little gray area, and each studio is going to be a little bit different. At Sucker Punch, a junior artist is definitely someone who's never shipped a AAA game. Now, that doesn't mean that all people who've never shipped a AAA game are junior, because you might have been working in the game of mobiles for a long time. You might have visual effects background. You might, have a certain body of work that puts you above that. But typically, if you're fresh out of school, you're going to be a junior. If you have zero production experience, if you've never shipped anything in your whole life other than, like gifts to your mom for Christmas, you're going to be a junior level artist. Mid-level is like maybe I've shipped one title. Maybe you've worked on a bunch of other stuff that wasn't AAA, like maybe you've worked on a bunch of mobile games or indie games, and you've got a high skill set. That's like a mid-level artist. And then senior, obviously, you've shipped several titles. You've been in a senior position before. That's kind of where the hierarchy is. Yeah. Okay. So what does a typical game studio hiring pipeline look like? I'm going to get your portfolio and your resume, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to scrutinize it. I'm going to look and see if you have spelling errors. I'm going to look to see if your email is in your resume. I'm going to look at your portfolio. I'm going to look at what software you know. I'm going to look at where you went to school. I'm going to look at how long you've been doing visual effects. I'm going to look at all of these things, and I'm going to say, okay, this young lady, young man, older lady, older man, who knows? I'm going to say, okay, their stuff is sufficient enough to take a test. Or I'm going to say they're not quite what we're looking for, because maybe we don't have somebody who fits that position. Maybe everything on your portfolio is foliage, and we just don't need another foliage artist. I'm going to do a little thumbs down. But if everything's, green lights ahead, I'm going to say, okay, let's send them a test. And in the world of games, almost every studio is going to send you a test, because it is the one tried and true way to weed out people who are hiding stuff on their portfolio, or people who are taking credit for other people's work, or people who are reusing a lot of assets to make it look like they can do stuff they can't. It's also our opportunity to see if you can do our art style. If you've only ever worked on super stylized games, let's say you've worked on Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, you've worked on Sonic, like these are all super cool games, you know a shit ton of stuff, but maybe you can't work on stuff like Uncharted 4. But I don't know, because I'm not going to assume that the stuff you've done is the stuff you can do. So we're going to send you a test. And this is your chance to show me that, one, you know what kind of games we make. Two, you can make those kind of games. And three, you can do it in a timely fashion. Because if you take one whole year to build an environment, that is like a third of production, and we might need you to do a little more than that. So how you manage your time and what you can do in that time frame is really important. You had a question?
what's an example of someone like test
I mean, it could be anything, and if you take a note to Google it later, you might find some actual tests. We, at Sucker Punch and at Naughty Dog, we ask candidates to not post your tests online, because what happens is, if I post my test and I got hired at Naughty Dog, other people are like, ooh, that's the quality bar I need to get hired at Naughty Dog, let me do that. And it gives other people a disadvantage. Or an advantage, honestly. Like, one person could do a really awesome test and might just not be what we need. And then people are like, oh, that's super awesome and I can't even fucking do that. Like, I'm never gonna get a job, and then they might not apply. So depending on what you're applying for, like at Sucker Punch, we send out some kind of an environment, because we don't typically hire just prop artists. We send out some kind of environment. We give you one piece of reference, and we'll say, here's some story stuff. We want you to be creative with it. Show us your creativity. And Naughty Dog has the same thing. They had different tests for different levels. We send a different test for senior candidates than we do for juniors, because we expect seniors to be able to do more. And then you take it home and you get a time frame to do it. This is your opportunity to show that you know a little bit about what you're doing. It's an opportunity to show your ability to manage time. and it's an opportunity to really show your creativity. Like, if I were to say that you need to model a kitchen, I don't want to just see the generic IKEA kitchen, guys. Like, take that opportunity to tell me a little bit of a story. Is it a Hobbit kitchen? Is it a kitchen like that's shared by in like a dorm room with a bunch of students? Is it like a kitchen of a hoarder? Like, I don't know, is it a kitchen that has like a person who has a ton of dogs and there's like kibble all over the floor? Like, look at it, digest it, take a day to think about what kind of story you can tell. Because if your skill level is a little bit below somebody else, but you have more creativity, I'm probably gonna have you go through to the phone screen. And, you know, IKEA Kitchen 01 guy, maybe not so much. So take that opportunity to really show that you're more than just a robot, because we don't need robots. Like, photogrammetry, sure, people are doing it, and you need some artistry to be able to make that work, but we don't wanna just download, you know, refrigerator 1 and, you know, tile floor 05. Like, we want to tell a story and share a scene, and we don't need more robots. We need more artists. So with your test, you want to show that, but you also want to show your ability to manage time, and you want to make it clear to me what you didn't have time to finish. In our test, we always ask people to talk to us a little bit about your time breakdown, what you've spent time on, how long did you take modeling, how long did you take to do texturing, what would you have liked to have done that you didn't have time for? I had a candidate recently whose test was perfectly fine. It was larger than the required boundaries for their skill level that we sent to them, but everything was super generic. It was like they modeled, you know, 80 meters bigger than they needed to, but those 80 meters were really bland. Now, if they just focused on those 20 meters that they were required, or whatever, half of that, and really made that shine and told me a story, I might have referred them to go forward, but their work was so big and so vast and so mediocre that I was just like, this person doesn't really know what the meat and potatoes is. They don't know what is really important in this shot. They didn't digest their time properly. And so everything I got was kind of like a gray box level of art. Now, there's nothing to say that, like, if you want to build this mountaintop, I don't know, maybe there's a castle or a piece of something on this mountaintop. That doesn't mean that every part of the mountaintop needs to be beautiful. You can take some low-res polygon squares, you know, make them look kind of rock-shaped, and like jam that into some stuff to like define the silhouette. And I'm like, okay, clearly this person would have taken some more time to build out all of those assets, but their silhouette is great and I see their idea. Their actual asset that they're presenting to me, let's say it's a, I don't know, like an old lamp post, and there's like a bench and there's like a little water fountain and stuff, and all those assets are beautiful, but the shit in the background is not great, but I can see where they're going. That's super important. But do I want to see everything at this current stage of like kind of meh? You're not going to move forward. So think about that. Think about breaking your time up, and think about how are you going to show me that you can do what I'm going to need you to do. And then if your test gets like the thumbs up from me and my partner, you get a phone screen, and this is where we get to find out if you're crazy or not. It really is just this really brief, maybe 15 minutes of like, you know, hey, how are you? What's the weather like? Are you crazy? Are you a douchebag? Okay, cool. All thumbs up again. Then you go in for an interview, and then you'll meet like almost all the senior artists in our team, and they're all gonna pick you apart. But that's cool. Question?
So my question is, generally, how much time do you allot for this art test?
So every studio is going to be a little bit different. Some studios will say, we want you to spend 80 hours. Some studios will say 20 hours. Sucker Punch, we break it down into about 2 weeks. And if you need more time, ask for it. Oh my God. If you don't write anything down today, just write down this one thing. Don't turn in a test that you are not proud of. Don't think, oh, well, my portfolio is pretty good. They're going to just say this test is fine. No, like, don't think that I am going to be able to read your minds and tell that you can do better. If you need more time, it is going to look way better that you took an extra week and made something beautiful than we're like, oh, they said 2 weeks, I gotta do 2 weeks. Because then I'm gonna be like, well, that was 2 weeks wasted of your time, dude, because now you're not getting hired. Take the time, ask for the time. nobody really cares if you need an extra week, if you need an extra 10 days, if you went on vacation, or if something sad happened or you had to work overtime, like, who cares? Just let us know you need more time. Take the time. Make it pretty. Okay. I'm looking at my notes. I promise I'm not texting. Yes, some studios do this in a different order. One studio I was applying to last year, 2 years ago, sorry, it was before I got hired here. They actually had me do a 5-hour interview before they sent me the test. And I was like, damn. After 5 hours, I was like, I really don't want to work here now. And I lost a whole day of work. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not taking your test, guys, sorry. So, sometimes you'll get a test first, sometimes you won't. One of the other big things, we're gonna look at though too with your test is, does it fit in our world? Again, if you do mostly stylized stuff and we're a realistic studio or vice versa, we wanna make sure that you're actually paying attention to what we do. So if we're a realistic studio and you turn in something that looks like it belongs in Sonic the Hedgehog, you're probably not gonna get hired. Okay. So your test was sweet, your portfolio was awesome, and they're like, hey, we wanna pay you to make video games. And you're like, yes, Mom, I got my first job, let's go to dinner, but not too expensive because I can't pay. You're like, okay, now what? And then you're like, oh crap, now I'm gonna pee my pants because I have to work on Uncharted 2 for my first game. I have to work on Horizon Zero Dawn for my first game, and I've never touched a game engine before. What do you do? What should you expect? Your first thing is probably going to be, well, is it contract or full-time employment? As a junior, it is super common to get hired on contract. I don't really know why, but it just is. I mean, I've heard people say, well, it's easier to test people out, but I mean, they're even at full-time, you're typically at will employment, and they can just let you go if you're just not doing good anyway. I started on contract at Naughty Dog. I was hired in February, and I was supposed to be there through July through shipping Uncharted 2, and I'm like, oh crap, I have Sally Mae barking at my door. I need to be able to pay my loans after I finish shipping Uncharted 2. So, like all of you should do, even when you get a contract, don't believe that it is, with a gold stamp and that they're going to extend you. Sometimes they will. I know people who've gotten contracts extended through the project onto the next project, but you're gonna wanna make sure that you got something lined up for that. I had something lined up. I interviewed at Blue Sky. They're like, hey, we'll make you full-time after your project ends in July. And I was like, sweet. I told my boss, hey, I don't want to go anywhere, but you guys haven't made me any promises. They made me full-time like 4 months before my contract was supposed to end. So, make a plan. But nothing wrong with being on contract. It's just not, there's going to be perks that other people get that you don't, and you're going to be like, ugh. But most of us start off there. A lot of juniors are going to start off with props too. It's fun. You get to get paid to make pretty assets, like from start to finish. Like, who doesn't like doing that? That's like one of my favorite things to do. I'm gonna sculpt it in ZBrush, I'm gonna model it, it's gonna be sweet. It's common. Some studios don't have the bandwidth for that, and a lot of studios now, they outsource. Like at Naughty Dog, we outsourced so much crap. Like, I had to manage over 150 assets through outsourcing for just one level, and I got to build like a few of them. And like 150 of them went overseas. So sometimes you're gonna get lucky and get a prop job, but sometimes you're gonna have to do more than that. You might have to manage an entire space, like an entire level, or work with another artist on an entire level. You might be able to get a job as a breakables artist if you have effects work. Like, I know a couple of juniors who started at Naughty Dog working on breaking crates, breaking bridges, breaking tree branches, all the work that makes it look beautiful, and all of the like pre-baked render simulations on that. That was super cool. You're gonna have tasks though, no matter what, whether you're a prop artist or you are, let's say you're a level artist, or maybe you're just working on collision and shadow proxies and things that no one ever sees, and we would typically say grunt work, but it's a thing. And everybody has to do it, and if you're at a studio that's like really big and they have tons and tons of artists, sometimes that's the only way to get in, is to start by working on shadow proxies and working on collision so that the player doesn't step through things that they're not supposed to step in. But you're gonna have these tasks, and you're gonna have to manage those tasks. Like, you're gonna have so much shit to do and not enough time to do it all. Like, this is going to be the rest of your lives. in the visual effects industry, in the games industry, you are going to have too much crap to get done, and you are not going to have enough time to do it. So you have to learn how to like prioritize those things. I start by making a list. Some companies have software that helps you do that. I have sticky notes. I have sticky notes all over. I recently upgraded to digital sticky notes, but I still write them down by hand because it helps me remember them. And I stick them to my monitor. But you're going to have to start learning how to prioritize. And you can't noodle everything. Like, there's just not enough time. I mean, every title that I have ever shipped has art that I thought could be better. And there's just nothing you can do about it. So you have to learn how to prioritize, make some lists. And you're like, okay, these are all the things that I need to do. What is the most important? Well, I'd start with the stuff that somebody else has to work on too. Like if something's getting animated and you can't work on it after it's animated because it's going to break the rigging, maybe start with that. We like to call those dependencies. If there are 3 or 4 other people in the chain that need to touch that object, that should probably go to the top of your priority list, because if it's at the bottom, those people are also waiting now for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows? And now you might make them kind of screwed over and they might need to work, really, really late on the last day. So, work on some of those things. You're going to have to prioritize. You're going to have to get concept and learn how to build something beautiful from it. And maybe it's not going to be concept. Maybe it's going to be like this sketch on a napkin. Maybe it'll be an image. You're going to get, who knows, various types of things, and you're going to have to build them out. Sometimes you're going to just get an idea and they're going to be like, I want it to be spooky. I want it to be intimidating. I want it to be scary. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I want it to feel safe. And you're going to be like, what the crap? And you're like, oh, I remember that one class that I took on character design, and they talked about safe shapes, like the round character versus the like triangle character. Okay, triangles are angry and soft, squishy things are safe. You're going to have to infer a lot and kind of make it up as you go. And sometimes you'll get like a straight 1-to-1 paint of something you're going to have to build, and sometimes you're going to like get like an ink splot and you're going to have to make something beautiful out of it. You'll probably have to work with designers. You'll have to work with lighters. Like the days of holing up in the dark and just building something for 80 hours straight with no other human contact is going to be over. You're going to have to learn how to push and pull. Like, we work with designers sometimes and they're just like, this is the shape you have. Now, make it into a cathedral, and you're like, cathedrals don't look like that, dude. And they're like, here's this platform sticking right out of the wall, and you're like, platforms don't stick right out of the wall like that in cathedrals, dude. And sometimes you have to get creative with them, and sometimes you have to talk to them and say, could it be something else? Could it be higher? Could it be lower? And you have to learn how to work back and forth, and then sometimes you just have to make stuff that's kind of ugly because it serves the purpose of design, and you need to be able to climb that ledge so you can get out the window. It's, it's this like push and pull with everyone you work with, and you have to really understand like everybody wants the same thing. It's really easy to be like, I just want this to be beautiful, and they want to ruin my art. And it's like, no, they want the gameplay to be fun, and the lighters want the lighting to be beautiful. And now like, it's super dark and you can't see any of my textures, and I'm crying at home because I spent like 40 hours making beautiful textures and no one can see. Well, it's not just about me. It's about the whole scene. It's about, does this tell the story? And did rendering blue tone everything and now you can't see any of the colors that I worked on? Well, it's about more than just me now. It's about the whole project and how we all work together because we all have that same plan. So crunch. Who here knows what crunch is? Awesome. You guys have probably experienced your own crunch here and there. Like, oh, I've got a project for Poly Modeling 1 and I haven't started it yet and it's due tomorrow. Yeah, we've all been there. Crunch is a real thing. Every studio and every game studio and every effects studio handles it differently. At Naughty Dog, crunch can last for what seems like eternity. At Sucker Punch, it kind of ebbs and flows. We have milestones where we push to have a lot of content done at the end of each milestone, and then we start fresh and new. And sometimes studios will do that because it helps keep you from crunching for 6 months, 8 months to a year later in the end. We always used to make this joke at Naughty Dog that 90% of the game gets built in the last 10% of production. And it's like totally true. So you know, it's one of those things that it's hard, it's a fact of life, and a lot of it is, like, people say, oh, the scheduling is just bad and this and that, and it's like, sometimes no matter how good you schedule something, like, you just find later on, like, I need to drastically change this because we've play tested it and it's bad. We need to make it better, and you just have to rework stuff. So don't think that just because you get your sweet job that you're never going to work a long day again, because it's just the reality. But how scary and how fun is it really? A little bit of both. It can be really scary when you were working in, like, a big game and you're like, oh, I love games. Games are so sweet. And now I'm working on one, and then you're like, oh, wait, I have never made a game before. How am I ever going to make art that is good enough to win Game of the Year? And, you know, you start looking at other artists in your studio, you get help, and you get there. But then it's also really fun because you get to make art and you get paid for it. Like, you watch trailers of your work come out, and people all around the world are like, oh my God, this is so cool, I can't wait, I'm buying a PlayStation 4 just so I can play this game. And then you hear people who are like, PlayStation sucks, Xbox. But, I mean, like, it can be fun. It's still frustrating. Like, you're still gonna come into work some days and you're gonna be like, oh, I wish I was at home snuggling my dog. And then there are gonna be days where you're really excited to come into work, but, I mean, it's still work, it's still a job, it's still very serious. If you don't get your tasks done, like, that's a big deal, because marketing, money, like, the longer your production takes to get done, the more it costs your studio. Here's a question in the back. I beg to differ on that. So, because here's the thing. We're making art, but it's not our own anymore. You're going to have ideas, and you're going to be like, oh, I really think that this needs to look like this. And you'd probably be really happy making it look like that. And then someone else is going to be like, I want to make it purple. And you'd be like, I fucking hate purple. My mom painted my bedroom purple when I was a kid because she thought I was going to be a girl. I was a girl and I hated purple. So there are going to be times where it's still frustrating. Doesn't mean that you don't love your job, but there are going to be days where it is like work to get through work. And then there are going to be days where you are like, shit, it's 11 o'clock at night, now I'm supposed to be home for dinner at 7. And you look down and your phone's got like 500 texts from your significant other, and they're like, where the hell are you? So, you know, there's going to be up days, there's going to be down days, there's going to be like days where you have like the longest meeting in existence and you fall asleep, and there's going to be days where you have no meetings and you have a ton of productivity, and then you're going to have days where your coworkers are really loud, and there's going to be days where it smells like farts. You know, like, it's still a job, and it's still challenging because there will be pressure. When you're working on something on your own and you go home and you're like, oh, I have a really bad headache, all I want to do is eat pizza and watch, you know, Stranger Things on binge on Netflix. Like, you can do that. But when there's pressure to complete something, you don't always work as productively as you want. And that's frustrating. Like, who here has come into school to work on a project and you've been here for 12 hours, and when you get home, you're like, crap, I did not get anything done today. All right. Now imagine that it's not just a grade that's dependent on that, it's a paycheck, right? So the same frustrations you feel here, you can feel at work, and they're gonna be a lot scarier there. Because here you're like, okay, well, I didn't finish it now, but I can finish it next week. I can, after I finish school, I can take an extra week to finish my portfolio, or I can take an extra month because I'm living at home, I'm living this sweet life. But you don't always get an extra month, you don't always even get an extra day when you're in the industry. So yeah, are there really Nerf wars? At Sucker Punch, yes. I have 2 Nerf guns right now. I have a crossbow and I have like a single shot, no, it's like a 5-shot revolver. At Naughty Dog, no, everybody was like, yeah, we have Nerf wars, and like nobody ever fired a dart anywhere. But we've had like full-on eruptions at Sucker Punch, so we still have a lot of fun. We have like pizza parties at lunch. We have a pizza oven, and like the president of our company has his own like chef's jacket with a Sucker Punch patch on it, and he makes pizzas for us. So, you know, there's a little bit of both. Okay, next. Okay, we're getting close. We're almost there. We're almost there. So tips for your first big job. Okay, I will say this, write everything down. Take a notebook. They even have new notebooks, guys, that you can microwave and it'll clear out. I have one, it's super awesome. You take a picture of it, it uploads your shit to the cloud. When it's full, you put it in the microwave with a glass of water, and it erases everything and you start fresh. That's a thing, so you don't have to spend tons and tons of money on notebooks, but also most companies have an office supply room with notebooks. Don't make an excuse to not write things down, because you're gonna go to a meeting and someone's gonna be like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of crap I want you to do, and then you're getting back to your desk and you're like, I remember one of those craps, but I don't remember all of those craps. You're gonna get feedback, you're gonna get technical advice, you're gonna get, when is the lunch bus come? Like, there's gonna be all kinds of information that you don't wanna miss, and so I would write it down. During my first annual review at Naughty Dog, my lead made a comment about how, oh, Melissa's always got her little notebook. She always writes everything down, and she never asks the same question twice. And I'm like, damn straight. Y'all are gonna think I'm dumb if I ask the same question like 3 or 4 times. Don't be that person. Make it appear that you're listening. Even if you don't understand what they're saying, write it down or write down some scratch of it. They're like, blah, 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 Adrian, blah, 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 render layers, blah, blah, blah. But just put down those things, and then you're like, okay, I need to talk about Adrian about render layers. Okay, I can start with that. Write down critique, write down comments, write down technical, write it all down. Even if it's not about your level, but it's about somebody else's, and they're like, oh, the composition here is like, something about leading the player in animation. You're like, oh, those are smart things. Maybe I should write that down so that later on, I don't get that same critique because I've already put it into my work. Write it down. Ask questions if something isn't clear, and write down what you learned. There's gonna be times where you're like afraid to ask a question because you're like, I don't want them to think I'm dumb. I don't want them to think I don't know things. I don't want them to think I don't belong here. If you're a junior artist, we know you don't know things. That's okay. We know you know other things. You probably know stuff that I don't know, and I've been in the industry for 10 years. But it's okay. It's okay that I don't know things. I admit it all the time. But if you don't know something and you just operate on, well, maybe this is right, maybe you're not going to get it right. And that's a bigger deal to me than if you asked me, how do I do this thing the right way the first time? Writing it down so that you're not asking 5, 6, 7, or 8 times, because then people are going to think you're not listening to them. So definitely ask questions. We have this thing where we call it the 20-minute rule. If you're trying to figure out something, this is usually a technical thing, and it's not working, and if you're at 20 minutes and you're like, okay, well, I think I've almost figured it out, and then you get to 30 or 40 minutes, you've passed the time. You need to go ask somebody else for help. Find another artist, maybe another junior, maybe you got hired around the same time as somebody else. Ask them first, hey, Junior Joe, do you know how to do this thing in Maya? And Junior Joe's like, fuck no, I don't know how to do that thing. Then you can ask your lead. You should always feel comfortable asking your lead. Taking that initiative is always gonna look good. And they wanna know that you wanna know things. But if you're spending more than 20 minutes, you're wasting your time, go ask for help. Always be looking at the quality bar. So it's really easy to feel like you know what games look like. You're like, oh, I just finished Horizon Zero Dawn. I know what games look like. And then when you go to make your stuff, you're like, that looks pretty cool. And you're making art in a bubble. But then what's gonna happen is you're like, oh yeah, your lead's gonna come over and be like, boop, 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 boop. All those things are bad. Go make them better. And it's because you're in a bubble. You need to be looking at other parts of the game. You need to look at other games. Look at screenshots of other games. If you don't have time to play them, watch playthroughs of other games. Look at other parts of the game. Look at the dude next to you. Be like, hey, what's going on over there? What you making? Oh, that girl over there in effects, that's really cool. What part of the game is that? Tell them their shit looks good, because most of the time we're all just hearing about how crappy our stuff looks. That could be better. That looks bad. Say, hey, that looks really cool. Where's that at? Make a new friend. But if you're going to look at these other parts of the game, you're going to see whether or not you're meeting that quality bar, and that's the end all be all is find the best looking level in the game. Find that one artist. I have that one artist at Naughty Dog that I was always competing with internally. I'm like, all of my shit needs to be as good as Genesis Prado, or I have failed at life. And that constantly challenged me to make my textures better, make my blends better, make my space more, I don't know, just involved and deep and rich. So find that one person to have that oh, you're my frenemy, and internally compete with them. And then again at the bottom, that whole like making lists and prioritize your stuff. Yeah, like do that and do it and do it until like you've reached the bottom of your list, and then like make another list and go through everything on that list until it's all done. Okay, I've talked so much, and I have missed so much, but I'm here for a while. So ask the things.
So I suggest, since it's 2 and we'll have to clean up this room, that we like maybe take 2 questions right now. But Melissa has graciously said she'd hang out afterwards, so you can be like grilling her for a little while this afternoon. So any quick questions right now you want to throw her way?
This one.
Okay, so in the VFX classroom, we generally, whenever we do textures, it's all through RenderMan, which I know that is not what you would use for the game engine. Do you take that into consideration when you're looking at somebody applying for you that they only use texture and RenderMan?
Okay, good question. And that can be, really broad, right? Like that could be even outside of like effects and stuff like that. Like maybe you've only ever made textures in Photoshop instead of Substance Designer or ZBrush or whatever. If you can make good looking art, that's more important to me than what you're using to make it. When I started at Naughty Dog, I had never touched a game engine. I had never owned a PlayStation. I couldn't even move Nathan Drake around the world. So no, as long as it looks good and you're young and smart, like you guys are never gonna learn anything as fast as you learn it right now. So I'm pretty sure I can teach you guys how to do anything. So I wouldn't worry about that. If it looks good, that's super, super important to me. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right. Well, everybody made her